Hello guys, welcome to my humble YouTube channel where I bring you fanfiction that will brighten your days. Before we start, a subscribe is greatly appreciated, and don't forget to leave a like and ring the bell icon so you won't miss exciting new fanfiction stories. True God in Another Worlds, Tensura x Tbate, by Tempest_King_20. Chapter 28, The Truth. Important note: before we start, I reviewed the chapter in which Rimuru talks about his previous life to Arthur, and I must clarify some things first so that it is not misunderstood. Rimuru, a prince who became king after inheriting his father's place with great power and is good at using magic and sword. This is the story that Rimuru made up, and he fabricated some events. Enjoy the chapter. Arthur Pav, Rimuru, who are you really? I asked my brother. This has been a question I have had since we were born into this world. Although my brother told me that he was a prince and then inherited the crown from his father, but for a moment I felt that he had lied to me. It hurt me that my brother lied to me. Even though I told him my story, he lied to me and didn't tell me the truth. I thought maybe there was a reason why he shouldn't, and I chose to wait for him to tell me. But right now, I couldn't hold back my curiosity about him. There are so many strange things about him. So many question marks circling around his actions, his very existence, the aura he gives off. As a king myself, I had met and interacted with many other royals, but Rimuru's aura seemed to surpass them all in its otherworldly quality. His aura seemed more divine. For 7 years, I had accepted his story of being a prince who inherited the crown from his father without question, but as time passed, I couldn't shake off the feeling that he was hiding something from me. I couldn't help but wonder if there was more to his story than what he had told me. When I finally confronted him about it, he looked tense and uneasy. Avoiding my gaze, my brother looked down for a long time before taking a deep breath and raising his head. He looked me in the eye with a serious look. "Let's go somewhere else first," he said, and I nodded, following him to an empty place where we sit, and he summoned a soundproof barrier around us. My brother gave me a look that seemed like he was going to say something serious. "First, before I say anything, do you promise me that you will not change your view of me, Arthur?" he asked, sounding desperate. It was rare for me to see my brother so vulnerable. I knew whatever he was about to tell me would be significant. I gulped down a lump of saliva and nodded. "I promise," I said firmly. "May you have suspected it, but the story I told was a lie with some facts," he said, looking at me with remorse in his eyes. I felt a heavy weight settle in my chest. Although I expected it, it still hurt a bit. The person I trusted more than anyone lied to me. "So who are you really, Rimuru?" I pressed him, trying to mask the hurt in my voice, wanting to know the truth. "I was an ordinary human being who lived an ordinary life in an ordinary world," he said, but I interrupted him in mid-sentence. "Wait, didn't you say you were a king before?" I asked, confusion creeping into my voice. Rimuru's aura had always suggested that he was more than just a commoner. "Wait until I complete the story," he said, and I apologized. "My life was an ordinary life. Until I reached the age of 37. At that time I was stabbed to death and I thought it was the end, but fate had another opinion." My heart raced as I heard his words, a million possibilities flooding my mind. "And you were reincarnated, but not in this world. You were in another world, meaning you were reincarnated twice, and this is your third life," I said, a statement more than a question. And he nodded. "But this baffled me. Is that all?" "I can anticipate your question," he said as he patted Sylvie, who was on his lap. "Contrary to what happened to us in this world, I did not incarnate as a human, but as a monster. To be clear, I was reincarnated as a slime." My jaw dropped at his revelation, and looked at him in disbelief. "A slime?" As I remember from the games I played in my previous life, slime is the weakest monster and even a normal human can kill it. He chuckled at my expression. "I know it sounds unbelievable, but there's more to the story. Unlike other reincarnations, I gained unique abilities that made me stronger than any other monster, and even humans," he explained. "I was able to absorb other monsters and gain their abilities and knowledge, as well as shape-shifting and regenerating my body, among other things. I soon became known as a powerful monster, and even founded my own nation." I sat there, astonished by what he was telling me. My brother was not just a prince or a king, but a powerful monster with unique abilities. It was all so unbelievable, yet I could sense he was telling me the truth. "So, as a monster, you built your own nation and lived life as a king?" I asked, still trying to wrap my head around everything. "Yes, I did," he replied with a nod, Being a monster gave me a completely different perspective on life and the world, he said, his voice tinged with an otherworldly quality that made me shiver. I sat there, taking it all in. My brother had been hiding an incredible secret from me, but I could not bring myself to be angry with him. He had lived a completely different life than anyone else I knew, and I was filled with a newfound respect for him. But I sensed there was more to his story, so I nodded to him to continue. Rimuru, is there more to your story? I asked, my curiosity piqued. He hesitated for a moment, studying my expression before nodding. There is, but I need to know if you can accept me for who I am, even if I am not human or a typical king. I met his gaze, ready to offer him my unshakable support. Nothing could ever change how I feel about you, Rimuru, I said firmly. He gave me a small smile before delving into the rest of his story. My life at that time was quiet and peaceful. Naively I thought this peace would last, but as I told you, we are monsters. A whole town of enemies of humanity. He said with some sarcasm, and I knew what happened next. Humans attacked you, right? He nodded in response. It saddened me to realize that human nature did not seem to change, regardless of the world they inhabited. I could not help but feel that humans often exhibited an unparalleled degree of greed and arrogance compared to any other creature. Yes, they did, he said. They saw us as a threat, even though we had never attacked them. They wanted to eradicate us from the face of the earth. I wasn't around at that time, and they killed nearly 100 of my people, he said, and I could sense the sadness and remorse in his voice. I approached my brother and patted him on the shoulder, trying to offer him a small bit of comfort, as he always did when I was sad. When I arrived, I was shocked, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Because of my decision, my people had died as a result of my naivety. But then, I saw a glimmer of hope. A friend told me of a way to revive the dead. I was surprised and looked at my brother in shock. Revival of the dead? Is this even possible? But first, I had to become a demon lord. And the condition for achieving that was to obtain 10,000 human souls. So I did what I had to do to protect my people. I killed the army that came towards us, which was roughly 20,000, and took their lives. The words sounded ominous, and I couldn't help but feel a shiver down my spine. Becoming a demon lord was not something that one could take lightly. It was a path that led to darkness and destruction, or at least, that's what I had always thought. And there you can call it my true beginning, he said with a heavy sigh, after I became a demon lord. As Rimuru continued his story, I listened in awe, amazed by the incredible battles and challenges he had faced throughout his life. He spoke of how he had fought against the saint, who had sought to eliminate all monsters of the world, and how he had established a relationship with the church after that. He also spoke of how he had fought against the empire in a war. But the greatest battles were yet to come. Rimuru had to fight against two of the most powerful entities in existence, and yet somehow emerged victorious. He spoke of the Tenma War, where he had fought alongside his closest allies to defeat a dangerous foe, and of the dragon destroyer of worlds Ivaraj, who had threatened to destroy everything. As he continued his tale, I could sense the weight of responsibility that Rimuru had carried on his shoulders. He had evolved into a god, and with that power came an immense responsibility to protect the world and all those who lived in it. It was a tale that would have been unbelievable if it had come from anyone else, but coming from Rimuru, it felt like a revelation. As his brother, I knew there was nothing I could do to match his achievements, but I was proud of him nonetheless. The thought that had been bothering me since he had started narrating finally found its words, and I asked him, if you were truly so strong, how did you die? The possibility of someone being able to overpower my brother, if he was as powerful as he had said, which I believe, brought chills up my spine. Sigh, I didn't die, he said, taking me by surprise. Seal, my partner suggested that I reincarnate myself in another world, so I put part of my soul into the reincarnation circle to randomly reincarnate. My initial fear was replaced with confusion. My brother hadn't died, but he had chosen to leave everything behind and start anew in another world. It was a strange and unexpected choice for him to make, especially for someone as powerful as him. Before I could question him further, Rimuru added, it's not what you imagine, Art. I'm in this world, but I'm still in that world too. This remark only added to my confusion. I'll tell you the rest of the details later, it's getting late, he said, sensing my confusion. That's good. I still want to know a lot about you, I said with a warm smile, feeling closer to him than ever before. Sure. he said when we got up. As we walk, deep in thought, I knew that our bond had grown even stronger. Rimuru may be a monster, a king, and even a god, but to me, he was still my brother. Someone who I loved, who I respected, and who I trusted with my life. By the way, how did Sylvia become so young? I asked. Oh, right, I didn't tell you that. When we were in the cave, I noticed Sylvia's deteriorating condition, and I suggested saving her, and that's what happened, Rimuru began to explain. When Sylvia died, her soul moved to my imaginary space, and became friends with my partner. Following that, she asked me to create a body for her, one that was close to our age. But didn't you say that you sealed your entire strength? I asked, puzzled by how Rimuru could have pulled off such a feat without his powers. Rimuru nodded in agreement. Yes, but Seal can still use it. So you tell Sylvia about your previous life? I said. A slow nod confirmed my suspicions and I could see the glint in my brother's eye. Yeah, you and Sylvia are the only ones who know that, he said, with a hint of a smile. Cue. Sylvie let out a playful sound as she hit Rimuru on the head with her claw, and I couldn't keep myself from smiling at their playful banter. Yeah, and you too, he said with a small smile to Sylvie. Rimuru pav. I couldn't help but chuckle at Sylvie's playful hit on my head. As we continued our leisurely walk, I couldn't help but notice the curious and concerned expression on Arthur's face. It was natural for him to be worried about my decision to reincarnate in another world, and I promised to explain everything to him in detail later. I knew it wasn't an easy conversation to have, but I owed it to him to be transparent. Perhaps if it hadn't been for Sylvia, I doubt that I would have had the courage to tell Arthur about my past life and my decision to reincarnate. I guess I owe Sylvia now. Less than Ehim greater than Seal cleared her throat, reminding me of her presence. Greater than of course I haven't forgotten you either Seal, I'll reward you later. Less than I said and felt happiness radiate from Seal. The whole time I was telling Art my story and even when I told Sylvia, I could feel Seal embracing my soul and reassuring me. As a spiritual being, Ciel's hug and presence meant so much more to me than any physical contact ever could. Her comfort and reassurance had given me the strength to make some difficult choices, and for that, I was forever grateful. We took a leisurely walk and made our way to Helstia's house. Sylvie jumped out of my head and walked beside me. As we arrived, we headed straight for the living room where the girls had just returned from a shopping trip. Sylvie, my sister said when she ran and took the baby dragon in her arms. Oh, there you two are. Where did you go? My mom asked, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. We got bored and went for a walk, I said with a smile. Art interrupted. Hey Rimuru, want to spar? Art chimed in, pointing towards the backyard. Not now, it's lunchtime, my mom replied, disappointing Arthur slightly. After we ate, Art and I headed to the backyard to train while Sylvie and Ellie eagerly watched. Lily sat nearby, immersed in meditation, her body emitting a soft glow as she focused on building her core. Meanwhile, the girls ran around the yard, playing a game of tag and chasing each other. Suddenly, I felt a sense of danger looming. It felt like something bad was about to happen, so I quickly took Sylvie and Ellie, wrapped my arms around them, and created a barrier. Just then, an explosion from where Lily was meditating occurred. I used my wind powers to block a few stones that flew towards us and looked towards the origin of the explosion. When the dust settled, Lily was still in her meditation position, with a layer of mana around her body. While it wasn't even remotely as strong as mine or Art, she still managed to draw toward her everything in a 3-meter radius. What happened? A shriek came from Uncle Vincent, who had rushed to the backyard with Mom and Aunt Tabitha following anxiously. Is everyone all right? My mom yelled anxiously as she looked around in confusion at what had happened. Congratulations, Lilia, on your awakening, I said, a proud smile on my face as I watched Lily slowly come to her senses. They seemed to understand what had happened at that moment and looked at Lily, who was looking at her hands with a little tear. Tears fell down Uncle Vincent and Aunt Tabitha's eyes as they hugged Lily, whispering words of congratulations and joy. They were overjoyed that their daughter was finally able to awaken her core. When they stood up, Lily leapt onto me, wrapping her arms around me tightly and resting her head on my chest. Thank you so much, Rimuru. she exclaimed with tears still glimmering in her eyes. At the same time, Ellie seized my hand and tugged me in her direction, casting a displeased glance in Lily's direction. I couldn't help but let out a small laugh at her adorable expression, wondering what thoughts were running through her head. I can't get over how adorable she is, I mused as I gazed at my sweet little sister. Rimuru, can you explain what happened? My mom asked, her eyes narrowed in suspicion. I scratched my cheek awkwardly, knowing that explaining this to her wouldn't be easy. Well, I might have helped Lily form her mana core, I said, trying to keep a light tone. What? The three adults shouted in disbelief. How did you do that? My mother asked, her eyes widening with curiosity. I had a theory that since I'm a quadruple mage, I could help her awaken her core, I explained, proceeding to give them a detailed account of what had happened. When I finished my explanation of Lily's awakening, my uncle and aunt enveloped me in a tight embrace, their eyes brimming with grateful tears. Thank you, Rimuru. Overwhelmed with emotion, Uncle Vincent's voice quivered as he uttered. We'll never forget what you've done for Lily. Meanwhile, my mother flashed me a proud smile while patting my head affectionately. Despite the initial perplexity and dismay, they all felt immense pride in Lily's achievement, alongside a deep sense of gratitude for my assistance. Both Uncle Vincent and Aunt Tabitha had insisted on giving us more gifts as thanks. Not wanting to take advantage of them, especially after everything they did for my family, I turned down all the gifts they tried to give me and simply asked them, and my mom, to keep this ability of mine a secret as I didn't want to be nagged by doting parents asking me to awaken their children. My dad came a bit later from work, and he was ecstatic for the Helstia family that they had their first mage in the family. His pride was evident in the way he glimmered with delight, as our surroundings were flooded with a gratifying sense of celebration. The feast that ensued was undeniably gratifying, as my aunt and uncle truly outdid themselves with their delectable offerings, making my taste buds tingle and Sylvie's salivary glands work overtime by my side. We ended the night with everyone merry, Uncle Vincent going around offering drinks to even the maids and butlers, and I couldn't help but feel grateful for the love and support of my family and friends. It was a night I would never forget. Over the next few days, I spent a lot of time with Lily, helping her to adjust to her new abilities and teaching her some basics of mana manipulation. Since she was young, it would make it easier for her to master mana rotation. She was a quick learner and showed a lot of potential, and I couldn't help but feel proud of her progress. I also spent a few days out of the week sparring with Art and my dad, but I could tell that my dad, were holding back, always afraid of hurting me, even when it was unnecessary. Despite his concern, it felt good to be able to train with him and hone my combat skills. During this time, Art and I also got to talk to our mother about her abilities as an emitter. We asked how she was able to learn and train it when there were so few emitters around, and she smiled at us mysteriously, saying how a woman needed to have a few secrets of her own. It left us both curious and confused, but we knew better than to pry too deeply. 2 weeks before my and Art's birthday and the start of our career as an adventurer, I was startled by loud, obnoxious knocks on our front door. Opening the door, the faces of the all too familiar group made me smile with glee. Dash 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 dash. Hi guys. Thank you for your concern regarding my health. I appreciate it very much. I am happy to report that my pain has subsided, although I am still feeling a bit unwell. It is not affecting me as severely as before. Furthermore, I would like to inform you that the adventure arc will feature a few additional chapters that were not included in the original novel. I am also considering releasing some side chapters. These side chapters will not interfere with the regular release of the main chapters and will be available on a separate day, or maybe I upload it on Friday too. Along with an original chapter, this means there's a chance that 2 chapters, a main and a side, may be released on Fridays in the future. Thanks for reading. Until next time, take care and all the best.